Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching PHTV4, and today we are going to be talking with Officer Ashley Vinson from the Palos Heights Police Department. We're going to be talking about drug addiction, the stigma related to it, and then get the law enforcement perspective on how you address this type of problem. Not typical, obviously criminal offenses around it potentially, but also dealing with an addict and then how we get that person help maybe, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Officer Vinson, for coming in today. Before we get into this issue, can I ask you first, so how long have you been a police officer, maybe specifically with Palos Heights? And then you also have a special background with the CIT, the Crisis Intervention Team.
So I've actually been an officer for about 5 years. It's probably a little bit more than that because I came from another department, but about 5 years with Palos Heights. And then I've been on our Crisis Intervention Team probably about three and a half years now.
Okay. Can you tell what is a crisis intervention team? How does it distinguish itself from the rest of the department or the rest of the day-to-day operations of being a police officer?
So our crisis intervention team that we have now is currently made up of 4 officers. We go through specialized training. That's about 40 hours, so it's a week-long training. The training includes de-escalation tactics, active listening, and scenario-based training that might be dealing with somebody that's going through a mental health crisis. So we get a lot of hands-on, which is nice for the class. We also learn about common mental health diagnoses and the stigmas that may come from that and how to alleviate away from that when handling those individuals. Our CIT team works with many community resources that can help provide assistance to these individuals that are going through crises. And our last CIT coordinator that just retired actually taught in our 40-hour class specifically on one day, and then he actually helped with the scenarios as well. He taught in our police academy, and he actually had a social work background as well.
So you got trained in different scenarios. That would. It's interesting because I know, myself included, a lot of us think of police officers as, you get a phone call to a crime situation, or, you're trying to arrest or control a situation. CIT is a slightly different model. So not everybody in the Palos Heights Police Department is CIT trained, right?
Correct.
And it's a special training to address certain situations, or different scenarios you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of what some of those scenarios are?
So it could be somebody that's dealing with a drug addiction. It could be somebody that's diagnosed with something that they decided to stop taking their medication. They could also have lost a family member. It could be as simple as that, and they're just having a hard time in life. Or they could be thinking about suicide because they're just having a rough time right now. So and we go in not only to help the individuals, but we go in to help the family members. So if we do have, unfortunately, somebody that's had a family member that passed away, and we do respond out for that, our crisis intervention team will follow up with that family a few days after the fact and just reach out and see if there's anything we can do to help them along the process.
I like that kind of, there's a whole experience here, right? It isn't just this immediate person. You mentioned the family, the people around them as well.
Yeah.
And I guess we're kind of talking about, so this gets to my next question. Typically, historically, law enforcement, you're like the first line here, right?
Yeah.
There's somebody overdosed, or there's some type of, crisis related to drug use. How would you say your training has changed your response in a drug intervention situation?
So modern policing in general has evolved in a positive way so much over the years with interacting with individuals that are struggling with drug addiction or any mental health crisis. For so long, mental health and addiction has been such a stigma, but it seems like more people are wanting help, and especially with all the advancements in social work, there's so much resources out there for them to get help now. I would say CIT has kind of taught me to be a better listener and really focus on what the individual is telling me that could possibly be leading up to whatever is going on in their life that they need help with. Another thing, sometimes as police, we don't want to take that second. We want answers right away as to what occurred before we got there or what's going on. This is a situation that we need to take a step back and really listen to what they're telling us or what the family members are telling us that's going on, so we can kind of dig a little bit deeper in and see what's occurring. we're not doctors or social workers by any means, but or there to diagnose them, but we're there to help them.
You're there first, but you're like a paramedic for the fire department, the first person there. All right, how do we manage a situation? So it sounds like you've kind of addressed it. You know, when you think about what things have not changed, I guess, and maybe we've talked about that a little bit, as compared to how they have changed. I mean, are some of the procedures probably still the same, I'm guessing?
I would think so, yeah. But just for me being on the CIT team, I obviously go into it with a little bit.
If there was a call like that where they knew, you know, like we have a situation here, do they try to get a CIT officer there?
Yeah, so most times, so like any scenario that we go into, not everybody's going to want to talk to the officer that's there. So most times there's two of us, if not more, there. So if it's not going well with the first officer, that officer can take a step back and another officer can step in and ask questions and see if they'll better respond to them. And if it is, we know we're going to a mental health crisis or something that could possibly be one. If we do have a CIT member on the street on that day or available, then we try and get them to respond. Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned that the stigma related to this, and I kind of want to talk about that part of it here. You know, sometimes officers are called in, it's a chaotic situation, or it can be, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, there can be, you know, there is a criminal aspect to this thing involved. But there is that element, you know, using the stigma that, well, like, the person is an addict, this is a choice they made, you know, it's a moral thing that they're failing in some way. Not always the case. I mean, you know, it's, you know, looking at it as a disease as compared to a moral failing. No, that's a different situation. Can you talk about specifically, you mentioned one officer stepping in for another, how you as an officer can help other officers or help in that situation model that different perspective on this situation, dealing with the stigma instead of like the older stereotype of.
So we do training for all of our officers in-house. So we do an 8-hour like refresher CIT course for all the officers. They're not certified because they haven't attended the 40-hour one, but we do that once a year, and we have scenario-based training that we try and put them through as well too. So just a little one-on-one, get some that. Especially for CIT members, we do have multiple other agencies in the area that have CIT units. So we do try and do like a monthly or every couple month meeting where we'll all kind of talk to each other, pick each other's brains on certain calls if we're having or struggling with a certain individual, what we could do better, how we can do it, or what resource we haven't tried yet. But for our officers as well too, it's all about working alongside. As we're one big team, so working alongside with each other and just really trying to help the individual.
So I'm going to give you a couple of questions here. Based on that experience, working with, you know, I'm going to use the term like compassion fatigue, like, oh my gosh, here we go again, especially if you've been an officer for multiple years and you've seen this again and again. Based on your experiences working with officers and your skill sets, specifically in this background, I mean, I'm assuming you feel like, yes, it's helping.
Yeah.
And in what ways would you say you've seen it be more successful actually in practice? Like, yeah, here we go, first line. Now it's happening. Officers being better equipped to handle it or more compassionate?
I think the trainings that they've gotten through the police academies just in general have gotten better with de-escalation tactics and just working with individuals and the listening skills. Not everything, it's not like the old style of policing. There's a lot of crises and mental health crises nowadays. So it's all about just talking to the individuals and taking the step back and really giving them the time to explain what's going on. If back to like having the two officers there, you can tell if an officer is getting frustrated.
Struggling.
Yeah. And so that's when the other officer can recognize that and just step in and say, hey, why don't you take a step back? Let me try and see if I can get them to communicate with me a little bit better.
Do you think, do you think that's helped officers develop a more compassionate attitude towards dealing with an addict, as an example?
I think so. I mean, I think so.
Like, so that the stigma we might be that some individuals might want to apply to that person, you know, if we step back and listen, we can approach it from a better
because you might you might pick up on something. You might not have been asking the correct questions.
Right.
So that other officer might ask a different question or just have a little bit different way of asking it. And then you'll hear something that individual says that you've never been able to get out of them before. And then you can run with that.
That's a really interesting point. I like that concept, especially if you have two people there. The other officer is going to have a different perspective or be able to come at it listening in a different way, for example, right? I thank you very much. It sounds like the crisis intervention team is a great resource, great training program to take into, especially a situation like this. I want to ask, do you have any other advice or information you might provide to either, let's say, a person who is an addict or family and friends around an addict to help them, get to a better path?
First off, you're not alone. No matter what you're going through, what crisis you have going on, you are not alone. All your communities and police departments have resources they can provide you with. Even if you don't live in Palos Heights, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We have a ton of resources we can help with. We work with specialized resources too that work with substance abuse, and they came in and tell us their stories and their journeys that they've gone to, and it's great to hear and it's really inspiring. So we would love to be able to share that with you if that's something you need. And you can always call our department and ask for a crisis intervention officer. If there's not one on, they can leave a message with us and we'll get one back to you. If your local police department doesn't have something like that, you could reach out to another department.
So if I had a family member who I was concerned about, I could call the police department and you would help channel me to the resources that might, what if, the person's an addict and maybe they're afraid of a criminal offense consequences for it, they can still call and get help or channel to help. Yeah,
we want to get the best help for you and before other issues come down the road. So.
Right, okay. Another great concept too. Let's try and handle, let's work with you now, right? And to use your, we're going to listen, we're going to, try and address this in a way that's going to get you the help or resources that you need, whether it's counseling or some type of treatment. These are all, Officer Vinson, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The crisis intervention team sounds like a very important tool and resource in a department. So, great with the training. Anyway, thank you for speaking to the topic.
Of course.
I'm Dave Worsley. We've been watching PHTV4. We've been talking with Palos Heights Police Officer Ashley Vinson about drug addictions, stigmas, and resources available. Thank you for watching.